So, Christmas is coming, and I've been asked by a client to advise as to whether or not he should give all of his staff a £100 bonus. And I've said to him, no, don't do that. Instead, buy them a gift. And the reason is this. Here is £100. That's the £100 that he was thinking of giving his staff. Now, if you give somebody a pay rise, and unfortunately a Christmas bonus is effectively treated just like it was a pay rise, then that is itself subject to tax in the hands of the employer. And the two taxes involved are employer national insurance, which is about 14%. So there's on top of the £100, there's a charge there of 14. It's actually 13.8, but that's not thus. And the employer also has to pay their share of the employee's pension contribution, which is a minimum of a further 3% or £3. Of that £100, of course, the employee is not necessarily going to see all that much. So they are, I'm just going to change a note or two here, and I will take you quickly through the sums. We'll take that £10 away, and now I've got some change. So, in addition to the employer's national insurance and the pension contribution made by the employer, the employee themselves have to pay a further £12 of national insurance. They have to pay their own pension contribution. They may well have to pay a student loan. And finally, they've got some PAYE to pay. So, ultimately they end up with the change, which is a shade over 50 quid. If they take that £50 down to the off licence, they may well be able to decide to buy themselves a very nice bottle of spirits, say a nice, really nice bottle of whiskey for the Christmas break. Good. But at the cost of the £117 total, all the way here, essentially the employer has paid the employee to go and buy themselves a bottle of whiskey. The cost to the employer is a shade less than the total of this, because they of course get corporation tax relief. Of the £117, the net cost is only £97 in a profit-making business. But still, £97 in order to be able to buy an employee a bottle of whiskey, that's pricey, even for a pricey bottle of whiskey. So I suggested something else. Why don't you instead go and buy the bottle of whiskey yourself? Now, because I'm assuming a bottle of whiskey costs something like 55 quid for the employee, I can also, I think, with some confidence, say that if the employer was to go along and buy, well, he's got about 20 staff, so perhaps he goes along and he asks for 20 bottles of whiskey, and he says, tell you what, for each one, I will give you 50 quid. And the off licence says, well, yes, perhaps, why not? 50 quid. So I'm assuming that the employer is going to be able to get these bottles of whiskey slightly cheaper. And because he goes to the offie and buys the bottle of whiskey himself, then he gets taxed for the provision of the bottle of whiskey. But of course, a £50 bottle of whiskey at Christmas time counts as a Christmas gift, and therefore is subject to an income tax disregard by the HMRC, so there is no actual tax to pay. The employer is also able to get back £8 out of the cost of the bottle of whiskey that is VAT. They're able to recover that. So therefore, the net cost to the employer is only £42, and on top of that they get corporation tax relief. So actually the eventual cost to the employer is only 35 quid. 35 quid if the employer buys the bottle of whiskey. 97 if the employer pays the employee to buy the bottle of whiskey. I think it's just good to be Scrooge at Christmas. Buy your employee a thing, don't give them money.